What is going on, everybody? It is the greatest week in college football. It's rivalry week, and the game is here. Quicker than we wanted it to be because it feels like this season has flown. Now, on the other hand, this week has drug because Saturday, 12 o'clock, in the world's largest toilet bowl in Ann Arbor, Michigan, we have the game. Buckeyes favored by 10.5. That number's going to shift one way or the other before Saturday. And that shift could tell you a lot. Right off the rip, man. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody before we dive into this. There's a lot to digest going into this. So we are going to talk about everything from the weather to the last 4 years of trends to the Jimmies and Joes this year to some X's and O's stuff. What say you though? It's your favorite week as well.
Yeah, man. I'm excited every time this game pops up on the calendar. Like I'm excited for. There's nothing like it, man. There's nothing that compares to this. One of my buddies who's a diehard Notre Dame fan was on Twitter talking mess about Buckeye fans and how psychotic we are. And it's like, there are some psychotic Buckeye fans out there, but this game means a lot to a lot of people on both sides of the rivalry, man. And so like there's just nothing like it. So I'm definitely pumped up for this one, man, because there's a lot on the line for both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously the biggest question mark headed into the game is health. Honestly, on both sides or both teams. For the team up north, Max Bredesen, kind of their all everything. Dude's listed as a tight end, but phenomenal blocker. He's kind of their heart and soul guy. Got dinged up pretty good. Not sure if he'll play. Jordan Marshall didn't play last week against Maryland. Obviously, they're missing Justice Hayes. But to the guys that really, really matter, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Obviously, Coach Day has been extremely coy all week. We did get kind of that evil Ryan Day the other night. They asked him if he wanted to give a health update, and he grinned and said no, but everybody practiced. We talked about it before we came on. I think we both think Jeremiah Smith plays.
Yeah, I think JJ plays. I think there's going to have to be a lot that goes on for JJ not to play. Given his appearances on Caleb Downs and his brother's podcast, just the way he's talked about the rivalry, the way that he's said I should be good. Some of the things he said this offseason about his disdain and dislike for the team up north. Like I think there's going to be a part of him that feels like there's no doubt, like no matter what, I have to play in this game. And so I think JJ plays for sure. And I think that will be a huge boost, obviously, to our offense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's the best receiver in the country. So I think he finds a way to push through whatever he's dealing with in his leg.
Yeah, I agree. Zach Smith put out a tweet from the infamous tunnel fight. And he's like, if Saturday don't look like this, I'm shutting it off or something like that. And JJ retweeted it.
Yeah.
I just don't see how.
Yeah.
Carnell Tate, on the other hand, obviously, Ohio State fans have PTSD from Jackson Smith and Jigba and to some extent Nick Bosa. I don't think this is either one of those scenarios. I really don't. I think there is something truly lingering. You've heard all the rumors, Achilles tightness, calf tightness, turf toe. Achilles tightness is scary. We saw with McLaughlin. Complained about tightness, Achilles ruptures, shortly after. Turf toe, we're both watching Joe Burrow right now. The version of turf toe he had basically put the dude out 10 weeks. And, it's hard. I don't know if Carnell Tate plays. My gut tells me sure he wants to, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, man. And listen, when you're a receiver and if if those rumors are true about Achilles tightness, calf, turf toe, things like that, it affects everything that you're doing when it comes to running your routes. You don't have as much confidence when you're breaking off whatever foot, whatever ankle is bothering you. Pushing off that leg, pushing off that foot, it affects everything that you do as a wide receiver. And so that is one thing that if I'm a receiver, I'm going to be concerned about. There's no doubt about it. You have to have confidence in that leg, in that ankle, in that foot, whatever it is that's bothering you, to be able to go out there and perform at a high level. And if you don't have that confidence, then you're not going to be at your best, and it's going to be a detriment not only to the team, but to you as well. And that's more likely to have where injuries are likely to occur. As somebody who has ruptured their Achilles and had turf toe in college and foot and heel and arch problems and things like that, that's nothing to mess with, man. So as a receiver who's doing a lot of the planning and the cutting and everything that Coach Hartline really pushes these receivers to be able to do in and out of their breaks, in and out of their routes, like that is something that is nothing to play with. I do think Carnell it's not a JSN situation, not a Nick Bosa situation. I do think he's trying to push through. I do think he does go out in warm-ups and really tries to give it a go. I even, my gut tells me that he even tries to go out there during the game and give it a go as well. And if he does, that's a morale boost for everybody, because we know how much Carnell means to this team. And I know he wants to win this game very badly as well. So it would be nice if we have him, obviously, getting the two best receivers in the country out there. It's an added bonus, but I definitely don't think this is another JSN situation. I think Carnell is definitely battling something that can affect him in the long term.
Yeah, and obviously Lorenzo Styles Jr. as well. We saw him what looked like a stinger on Saturday. We'll see. I mean, obviously Bryce West played really well. I wish I would be as confident in the wide receiver rotation if one or both of those guys don't go. We kind of hit on it when we did recap. I just think the game plan last week is an indicator they expect these guys to go. I really do. We'll see, though. Obviously, that changes the whole demeanor of the game. I mean, honestly, when I wrote down my prediction, I have 3 different predictions. If they both play, if one of them plays, and if none of them play.
Yeah.
So we'll see. For whatever reason, these two teams are both in the northern half of the country. They play Big Ten football. It's November. It's cold. But weather always gets thrown around in this game. C.J. Stroud threw for almost 400 yards in the snow. But everybody's like, oh my God, they sucked because it was in the snow. Well, obviously it wasn't. Weather has changed for this game a lot, as the week has gone on. It is 11 o'clock on Thursday night, and the latest is snow late into the game or most likely after the game. 30 to 32 degrees, 7 to 8 mile an hour winds, 14 mile an hour gusts. Have you seen the ball coming out of Julian Sain's hand? I don't think that's going to hurt anything.
Yeah, when people bring this up, the weather will affect both teams in both in every way. Like that's one thing that you had to think about. Like, yeah, Michigan is going to run the football. Everybody says, like, if you're a running team, the cold weather is going to be more suited to how you play the game. But I think our defense is built to defend those type of things as well. And so I just think the weather will affect both teams. But at the end of the day, as long as it's not raining and things like that, the precipitation and things like that, I think we'll be fine. We are both in the Midwest, we're both northern states. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's still going to be a cold winter after Thanksgiving Day that in Ohio and Michigan that we deal with all the time.
Yep.
So I just don't see how it affects us more than what affect them. I don't agree with that necessarily. It's not like they're in the upper peninsula of Michigan, right? They're not that far north of us. You know what I mean? So it's not going to be that big of an effect on us. And so I think it can get overblown a little bit, but if we've got to go out and throw the ball 70 times, then yeah, It could be. It could change things a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal.
Um, another thing as we kind of start to look back, obviously, the team up north has won the last four. Um, a lot of people talk about how Ryan Day was always very uptight. It seemed like the guys on the Ohio State beat, and they said that this week it's a totally different dude. He's more relaxed, which is huge. Asked about, well, before we dive into that, Ohio State normally just takes the buses to this game. Shoots right up 23, and you're there. They're flying this year, which is crazy, but it keeps the routine the same for an away game. We've talked about it in nauseum about not just this game, but a lot of games. But 23 straight renditions of the game, the team who wins the rushing battle has won the game. Ryan Day was asked about that this week, and I love his response. His response was simply, whatever it takes.
Yep.
I saw this quote, and I don't know if it was on one of the 11 Warriors message boards or in an article somewhere about this stat. But is it possible that that stat is the way it is as an effect and not a cause? Because you get up big or you get up at all, you run the ball. Very interesting way to look at it. As somebody, I know you're all about the rush battle in this game, but also at the same time you want to win. But yeah, if we have to throw the ball 70 times, I think that could be a good thing. But what do you take of the being an effect instead of a cause? Is that potentially what we've seen over some of the time?
Yeah. So after last season, especially after last year's game, I did some I did some research on that topic specifically, and I just looked at the teams in those renditions of the game. And if you go back and you look at the history all the way back to when we were, teenagers watching
Right.
Coach Tressel and things like that, like back to like 2002 and all that, they were very, very similarly built teams. They were all built to run the football. And so when you're talking about teams that are built the exact same, yes, the team that wins the rushing battle is going to win the game. Ohio State is now built differently. They are built for balance, but they have these Ferraris now at wide receiver. And so we need to be able to be efficient in the run game while also getting the ball out to our playmakers. And I think that is the one thing that we cannot overlook. And I'm guilty of that. I overlooked it last year. When you have the JJs, when you have the Max Clairs, when you have the Carnell Tates, the Brandon Ennis's out on the edge, you got to utilize them. You got to get them the ball. That is where your advantage is. And when you utilize them, that is going to allow you to get your rushing game to get 5 yards a carry consistently. And if you're able to do that, you're able to control the game. And now you're able to attack Michigan in spots where they are weak, and you can attack them down the field and put pressure on them. And you can do things like you did against Oregon, like you did against Tennessee, like you did against Notre Dame. And I think that is the Ohio State that we have to be under Ryan Day. I don't think we can be the Ohio State that we were under Urban, where we had Zeke and we could give him the ball 35 times. I don't think we could be the Ohio State where we could give the ball to Maurice Clarett 30 times a game. I don't think we can be that Ohio State anymore. Would it be nice? Absolutely. But I just think we are built differently, and that's okay. That is perfectly fine. And I think Coach Day is finally at a place where he can be comfortable in saying, just win the freaking game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do whatever it takes, and I'm going to be the best play caller, the best version of myself in this game, right? And I guarantee you he's going to be super involved in the play calling this week.
Oh, yeah.
But he's just got to go be himself. And I think that is the one thing that Buckeye fans want to see. And so I think that rushing battle can be overstated when you look at the makeup and how the teams are built. Michigan relies on the run game. Ohio State doesn't rely on the run game to win their football games. And so that is where I think, like you said, if Julian goes out and throws the ball 50 times and is, 41 of 50 for 380 yards and 4 tutties, you know what I mean? Like, we probably win the game. Like there's a
Yeah.
very good chance we win the game. And so like we can win the game differently because of the way our team is constructed. And so that is just the way I think we need to view it as Buckeye fans. And it's whatever it takes, man. It is whatever it takes. And I think over the years we've been built similarly. Now I think Ohio State's built different, and we have to utilize this being different and utilizing those guys on the edges. And that's where our advantage is always going to be under Ryan Day, because we just recruit so well out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last 4 years, we've talked about the inefficiencies and such, of Ryan Day, essentially. I think he kind of had that come to Jesus meeting. Bill Rabonitz has talked about it in his book. We've seen clips from it. The infamous meeting afterwards. Mitchell Melton calling the coaching staff out. Ohio State needs to be Ohio State.
Yep.
Over in the last 4 renditions of the game, Ohio State's slow starts have killed them. Last year they trailed 10-3 in the second. In 2023 they trailed 14-3. So now you are throwing the ball more, but it's a known quantity. So teams are able to pin their ears back, come at you. Yeah. And when Ohio State did lead, they've never led by more than 7 points in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Which leads to, why? Why are these things happening? And it's pretty much, not always, but the red zone. Last year, Ohio State was in the red zone 5 times. 1 touchdown, 1 field goal.
Yeah.
That, even if you kick 4 field goals, you win the game.
Yeah.
You lost 13-10. They were 3 scoring opportunities, 3 for 3 in 2023. In 2022, it was 1 touchdown and 2 field goals. So you've got to win. You've got to score touchdowns in this game to win.
Yeah.
Not to crap on kickers, but kickers are kickers. Like, you don't want your game to come down to a kicker. And if it does, it's advantage Michigan. Dominic Zavada is a dude.
Yeah.
The Cleveland Browns should consider taking him with one of their first-round picks because they haven't had a kicker since Phil Dawson. The other thing that really jumps out, so we talked about the red zone inefficiencies. Ohio State has only forced Michigan to punt twice in the second half in 4 years.
That's crazy.
None of those were in the fourth quarter. And Michigan scored 13 times on 18 second half drives over the last 4 years.
That's crazy. That's a crazy stat, man. And that is, and you got to think of how Michigan's doing that as well. And it's doing that by running the football, and they're winning first down. And so as a defensive coordinator, that is something that you are going to be stressing. You've got to get them in situations where it's second and long. You've got to get them in situations where Bryce is going to have to throw the football and make decisions, because that is where you're going to be able to get creative, get some different looks, and have a situation where he's going to force the football. This is going to be a game where you're going to make him have to beat you with his arm. You're going to make this the Bryce Underwood show. Like you're going to have to be the guy that it's earning that $12 million that you're getting paid, because that's the only way that you're going to beat us is with that arm. But yeah, man, I think the red zone is obviously so vital to the success of this offense. And I think that's where a sneaky MVP for this game could be somebody like Lincoln Kienholz when it comes to getting in the end zone. You have to score touchdowns, like you said, and it's by any means necessary.
Yep.
So if that means, hey, Julian, I know it's not ideal to take one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the country, out, but Lincoln's legs are, you can't deny what he can do with his legs. And so add that +1 with CJ Donaldson in the back blocking for him as well. And now you've got a problem that you can give Michigan. And so that's something that we need to make sure that we are, paying attention to, because I think we will see some red zone package with him in there, and he will have the opportunity to throw the ball as well. But yes, 100% agree. Excuse me. Got to score touchdowns when we get in the red zone. We cannot settle for 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Michigan here lately has been known for a lot of dudes on defense. It also helps when you know what the other team's running, which they did not know last year, except we basically just ran it right at the middle, which was, we've talked, in nauseum about that. There's not a Kenneth Grant or a Mason Graham on this defense this year. And honestly, on the offensive side of the ball, even, yes, you've got the wonder kid, Bryce Underwood. They've got a dog of a wide receiver we'll talk about in a minute. But I want to talk about their defense first, because their defense is really solid. Edge, Derek Moore. Dude's got 11 sacks this year. I think before we came on, we were talking about him, and I think your exact word was dude's a baller.
Yeah, he's really good. You got to account for him, man.
Oh, yeah.
He can play, man. There's no doubt. He wreaks havoc.
Tackles better pack a lunch.
Yeah.
Rayshon Benny, the defensive tackle, another dude that's really, really good, but he is not Kenneth Grant or Mason Graham.
Yeah.
At the next level, Ernest Hausman, Jay-Sean Barham, both really good, really athletic. Their numbers aren't going to wow you, but they're athletic.
Yeah.
In the secondary, Rod Moore, one of their Ohioans, is out for the year, like we said. But Jair Hill, that's another guy I think you like, and Zeke Berry are both really good.
Yeah, listen. I think this defense is really good. I think Wink Martindale is a good coordinator. I think with that NFL experience, I think they're going to be able to give Julian a lot of different looks. I think they're going to, especially if JJ doesn't play or Carnell doesn't play, they're definitely going to try to man us up on the outside and really attach to our receivers and really shut down the run game and do some different things coverage-wise. But I think they can really give us some different looks, some NFL looks, very similar to what Coach Patricia can do for us. And so I definitely think we have to go out and execute. Receivers got to run clean routes, and when we get the opportunity to make plays, we've got to make plays. And I think you're going to highlight it on here in a second. But Max Clare is going to have a big day for us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So their defense, they rank 10th in the nation. They're allowing 2.98 yards a carry. They're 11th, giving up 94 yards a game on the ground. They do give up 208 in the air though, which isn't great. And they're 15th in the country, allowing 17.91 points a game. So all those guys we talked about, there's the proof in the pudding.
Yep.
That they're legit. Whereas the Ohio State defense, we don't need to go into all of the numbers because we talk about these guys every week. But just kind of a few things heading into the game. They've given up less than 300 yards the last 10 games in a row.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Season high is 16 points. Second in the country at 80 yards per game on the ground, giving up 2.6 yards a carry and 4 touchdowns on the ground. Now, the one caveat to that is they have only played one top 50 rushing team in the country.
Yeah.
Any guesses who it is, by the way, because it's not who you're going to guess.
I don't know, man. I don't have a good guess. I don't know.
Bobcats of Ohio University.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I would not have guessed them. I know that.
So obviously in the battle of something's got to give, The Michigan rushing offense, 5.6 yards a carry, 223 yards per game, and 32 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, that's their strength, man. That's what they're going to do. That's their bread and butter. That's who they are as a program. And so, Ohio State, the Buckeyes better strap up their helmets a little bit tighter because they're going to try to get downhill and play some rock'em sock'em football, man. And these are my favorite type of games as a defensive coordinator, man. You find out how tough your team is. I know we're trying not to use that word this year quite a bit,
Exactly.
but it's the truth, man. And I think this defense is ready for that challenge.
Obviously, their O-line is always good. They develop O-linemen as well as anybody, honestly, especially at the college level. Justice Haynes, their all-world transfer running back from Alabama, is out. Jordan Marshall, Ohioan, talked a little bit of mess this week. 143 yards, 143 carries, 870 yards, 10 touchdowns, but he's dinged up. We don't even know for sure what they're going to get out of him, but next man up. Just like when we say next man up for the Buckeye wide receiving core, their running back room last week against Maryland, Bryson Kuzdazal, I probably butchered his last name, 100 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with the scheme. A lot of that has to do
Right.
with the effectiveness of their offensive line. And if you just got guys that can just go out there, hit the hole, do exactly what their coach should do, I think that you can have some success no matter what. And I think no matter who they have in the backfield, they've got some guys who are going to run really hard. And so the Buckeyes just have to make sure we're gap sound. We got to make sure that we execute. I'm excited to see what Coach Patricia has dialed up to really slow down this run game, because I think some teams have had success. I think even looking back at Purdue, I know Jordan Marshall had a big game against Purdue, but Purdue still did some good things defensively to really slow them down. Northwestern did some good things as well. And so there are some teams that have had success against this offense. And so I'm excited to see what Coach P is really going to dial up against these guys, because I think they've got some chinks in that armor that we can really exploit. And I just want to see what Coach Patricia is going to be able to do, man. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'll be interested to get your thoughts in a minute on what you truly are expecting on that front, because if there is a weakness offensively, I mean, Bryce Underwood, all world, number 1 recruit, LSU commit for the longest time, Mr. I'll never go to Michigan, and then the money came. Also has 322 yards, 5 touchdowns. They only average 196 yards a game in the air, though. He completes 61.3% of his passes, 2,166 yards, only 9 touchdown passes to 6 picks. And he's a freshman, obviously. Yeah. Before I ask you, though, about what you expect out of Coach P, real quick, I hit on the wide receiver, Andrew Marsh. This dude has became a dog.
Yeah.
41 grabs, 611 yards, 3 touchdowns in the last 7 games.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to take some shots with him downfield. There's no doubt about that. And so, IGB, you better be ready to go. Jermaine Matthews better be ready to go, man, because they have a lot of faith in this dude. And he can play, man. He goes up and gets it. And so we better be ready to go, because this kid can play.
With a freshman quarterback who I don't want to say has shown a tendency to turn over the ball, but has some picks, doesn't throw a ton of picks in their touchdowns in their system because they are such a run-oriented team. They kind of remind me of the old school Denver Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
With Terrell Davis, it didn't matter who was running the rock. You knew they were going to run all over you.
Yeah.
But with what we've seen the Buckeyes do so far on defense this year, what we know Michigan's good at, you've got an athletic quarterback who is probably one of the 2 most athletic we've seen. I mean, obviously Arch Manning's a freak, Damon Williams, but Bryce is a little different. I think it was Sonny Styles compared him to Nico.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison. That's why I was hoping Nico would play, because I think that would have really been a good it would have been a good look for the Buckeyes to see that size moving around, being able to run because they're very similar in size and arm strength and things like that. So I think Nico would have been a really good comparison for the Buckeyes to get ready for this Michigan game.
So, what do you expect? Obviously, we're going to be in at least a 4-3,
Mm-hmm.
if not like a bear front almost, and you take the nickel back off the field. From a coach's X's and O's standpoint, what should we expect defensively? And do you think Matty P has a lot of things up his sleeve? Because I use the phrase that he's going to put him in a blender. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think Coach Patricia has a lot of things up his sleeve specific to this game. I do think they're going to try to confuse Bryce Underwood, give him a lot of different looks, and really show him like, hey, we're in man coverage this snap, but actually, no, we're not. We're playing Tampa 2. And so trying to, in passing situations, force him to throw an interception, force him to have to actually read a defense, and that's not necessarily going to be what he is viewed as his strength. And so that's why it's imperative that the Buckeyes go out and win first down, because I think that is where these exotic looks that Coach Patricia has become so known for this year are really going to mess with the eyes of Bryce Underwood. And so I think we're definitely going to see a bunch of that stuff. I don't know a ton of everything, but I've seen Coach Patricia do a ton of like Tampa 2 simulated pressures, inverted cover 2 where the corners are dropping back. Like he's just done a lot of different looks with that stuff. And so I'm excited to see that. Up front, I do think you're going to see a lot of the 5-man front like he's shown all season long, with Arvell Reese walk down, and then you bump the 4-man front, and you've got Caden Curry on the outside, and you've got the one linebacker in the box, and then you bring Caleb Downs as like that adjuster type. He's like that pseudo second linebacker, and then he can play in the middle in the field in the middle of the field as well. I do think we're going to see a lot of that stuff. But I do think it's all going to be out of the base 4-3 structure. I do think we're going to see some things that we haven't seen all season long. I don't know if there will be a lot of pressure, but I do think there will be pressure when we see like passing situations. I don't know how Bryce will handle that type of pressure that we can bring in those passing situations. And so it's hard to know exactly what he's going to do, because there's so much that he can do. And then the last couple weeks, I forget the Twitter account. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name, but they just showed some of like the inverted cover 2 stuff that he just showed in this last week's game against Rutgers. And it's like, as a quarterback, your eyes are all over the place. And so it's like, if we get into some of those looks in those passing situations, watch out. Like there's going to be some interceptions thrown. Like there's no doubt about it. But you got to win first down, number one. And so I expect on those early downs for the box to be loaded. I expect to see a lot of that bear front, that 5-man front, and Caden McDonald to get those one-on-ones. And that's why you see us run that 5-man front. For those of us that really don't understand what we were talking about with the bear front, whenever you see Arvell Reese walk down on the defensive line, and then the 4 defensive linemen are shifted over, and you've got Caden McDonald typically lined up over top of the center with 2 defensive linemen on the outside, and then Caden Curry lined up as the other defensive end. So you've got Arvell on the outside and Caden Curry on the outside. You've got 5 guys down on the defensive line. That is allowing your defensive line to now have one-on-one matchups. A guy like Caden McDonald is going to win that one-on-one matchup so many times. And so that's why I think a lot of the things that Michigan's going to like to do, those one-on-one matchups are going to be more advantageous for us. And I think Caden McDonald is going to have a big game. And so I think the bear front's going to be a big part of what we do. And those mock looks, those crazy looks that we can get into in those passing situations are going to be very big in what we do as well. And we got to force Bryce to beat us with his arm. I think that's got to be the main thing. Like, hey, go out and earn that paycheck. Go out and earn that $12 million. And if you can go do that, kudos to you. So that's what I think we're going to see. who knows? We might go out and play a ton of man coverage, and it could be all wrong. Like, I could be completely wrong, but I think that's what we're going to see quite a bit of.
From a coaching standpoint, obviously with Arvell, Caleb, Sonny, we have the guys to be effective spies. But with what Patricia likes to do, and with as run heavy as they are, so you're obviously going to have Peyton Pierce on the field a lot. How hard is it to deploy a spy, especially one of those three guys, with what he likes to do?
I don't necessarily think it's too difficult to do just because of the nature of the athletes that you have on the field, right? Schematically, you are able to do that when you have an Arvell Reese, a Sonny Styles, a Peyton Pierce. Those three guys are really freak athletes. And so I don't think it's necessarily a difficult thing to do. I think it all depends on what you're trying to do coverage wise in the back end, or what you're trying to do pressure wise up front. I think that's all the things that it depends on. And it just depends on what you're trying to take away as well. Like, there are going to be times where there's not going to be a spy, right? And so that's one of the things that you've got to identify. Where are we willing to give up on this certain play? And so I don't know how much we will actually spy Bryce, but I do think with Arvell Reese and with Sonny and with Peyton, like, I do think there will be times where we're going to have to, because his legs are going to be a threat. I think you said he's got around 400 yards rushing. Yeah. And so it's going to have to be a situational thing. And I think, this is not going to be a game where we can let his legs be a huge factor. And so I don't think, just with those freak athletes, man, I don't think it becomes a huge problem for us. It just depends on what coverage and stuff we're playing. But I think we'll be fine with Arvell and those guys. Like, I don't have any concerns with them.
Okay, cool. As far as, I think that kind of is a really good breakdown discussion about what Ohio State can do defensively. Obviously, you're a defensive guy. I'm a couch potato. But I saw a really, really, really good film breakdown this week about ways to attack the Michigan defense. They've been susceptible to the seams all year, and that wasn't even part of this. So before we dive into that, you hit on it. X Factor alert. Max Clare. 4 times this season against the Michigan defense, a tight end has had their season high in catches. 3 times the tight end has had their season high in yardage, and 3 times the tight end has had their season high in touchdowns. Especially if Jeremiah and or Carnell both play. That is going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. I think they're going to find ways to try to take away JJ at all costs. And so who is going to be that person that steps up? I think Max Clare is going to be a guy he's got to be a dude for us. He's got to be the person who is attacking the middle of the field, and he's got to have a game like he had last week. Because I think in these cold weather games, like everybody wants to talk about, your tight end has to be a guy that is old reliable, right? Yep. You can count on him to catch the ball, get you 10 to 12 every single time. And so I think Max Clare's got to be a dude. And like you highlighted, man, they're susceptible to that. And so he's got to be ready to go, man. I think he's going to have a huge game for us on Saturday.
Which kind of lines up with the next thing is they've struggled versus the slot against better teams. Back when we had Garrett Wilson, Ohio State had no problem moving Garrett Wilson to the slot sometimes to create a mismatch. Do you think we could possibly see Jeremiah, if he plays? Obviously Brandon Ennis is a really good slot receiver. But what you could do with Jeremiah in the slot, given the coverages that Michigan runs, is scary.
Yeah. I think we have a lot of guys that we could move around into the slot. I think, if it's not Jeremiah, if Carnell's playing, I think Carnell could go into the slot. I think Bryson Rogers is an excellent slot receiver. I really do. I think he could be an X factor for us in the slot as well if Carnell's not somebody who's playing. Obviously, you know how we feel about, everybody knows how we feel about Brandon Ennis. So I think Brandon Ennis could be really good for us. And I think Mylan Graham is somebody that you can move into the slot as well. I think there are a lot of guys that we have that can be those slot guys that can win one-on-ones in the slot for us. But I do think JJ could be that guy as well. It's going to force you to have to, if you're going to play man coverage, are you going to travel your guy down into the slot with them? Or are you going to say, hey, this nickel is going to have to defend him one-on-one? That's tough. You got to make those decisions. And that's something that the Buckeyes are going to probably likely have to do, is move him around, because they're going to try to take him away on the outside. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. USC really hurt them with something we saw Ohio State kind of play with a little last week finally, and that was tempo.
Yeah.
But USC coupled that tempo with late motion. USC had a lot of success running 12 personnel, which, go ahead, I know we've talked about it before, but explain 12 personnel real quick.
So 12 personnel, when we talk about 12 personnel, we're trying to identify how many backs are on the field versus how many tight ends are on the field. Okay. So when we talk about 12 personnel, there's one back on the field and there's two tight ends on the field. So that is what we are talking about when we talk about 12 personnel. When you talk about Ohio State, you've heard guys say like 13 personnel and 14 personnel. Like, why do we need to play with that? Why do we need to have four tight ends on the field and things like that? That is one of the reasons, or that is one of the ways that we identify, who's on the field and who's not. So that is what 12 personnel is.
So what USC did is they would come out in 12 personnel, and if they had, if they got like a mid to high gain, let's say 5 to 8 or 9 yards, get a first down even, then they would go tempo with no substitutions. And Michigan would be matched up to 12 personnel, and a lot of times in a 4 or 5 man front. So you have big personnel out there. You may have an extra D tackle or an extra edge guy. And then, because they weren't able to sub, coupled with tempo, USC would spread that 12 personnel out into 4 or 5 wide. Now you've got a mismatch somewhere because you have a big guy in limbo.
Yeah.
So you're either sliding a linebacker out on a running back, which is normally advantage running back, or you've got a safety on a tight end, normally advantage tight end.
Yeah.
You're creating havoc. I just jotted down as we were going over this, a grouping I think could be really, really good in that would be James Peoples at running back, and then Max Clare and Jelani as your tight ends. Now, do I think we would see that grouping? Probably not. But from a sheer mismatch standpoint, if you're going to run with it, that would be kind of a freaky group.
Yeah, definitely would be a freaky group. There's no doubt. Lining up in a heavy tight end set and then coming out and playing tempo and then going straight to empty, you're definitely going to have a mismatch somewhere. Anytime you get any sort of tempo as a defensive coordinator, it's not fun. It forces you to stick with the same personnel that you have on the field, and then your calls have to be super simplistic. It forces you to stick with like your base, and that's what the offense is wanting you to have to stick with. And so I definitely think Ohio State is going to have the tempo stuff in their arsenal this week, and that's why efficiency on offense is going to be vital, right? Because we go tempo, you've got to make sure those short passes are being completed. You're getting 4 yards a carry at minimum. Like, those things are huge when it comes to playing tempo.
And winning first down.
Yeah.
Because if you don't win first down, going tempo can put you 3 and out real quick. So it'll be very, very interesting to see. This is going to be a chance for Brian Hartline to show what he has learned. There have been games our offense has looked really good from a play calling standpoint. There have been games we've questioned a lot of things. I'll be very interested. Obviously everybody hates on Chip Kelly because of the way the Michigan game went last year. but I feel like if Chip Kelly were around, all those things we just talked about, Chip would take them and put them on steroids because he was that good at what he did. But we'll see. That's kind of where I feel like we are at as far as some keys to the game, ways the Buckeyes can attack on both sides of the ball. And Ohio State, I don't feel like wants this to come down to a special teams game. You know, Joe McGuire's only punted like 6 times in the last 5 games, and he averaged 36 yards a punt against these guys last year, so that doesn't help. They've obviously got the better kicker, like we talked about. I don't know, man. You can throw it all out the window though, because it's the game. It's here. I was talking to a customer at work via email this week, and they were like, have a happy Thanksgiving. And I was like, well, my whole weekend will hinge on about a 3.5 hour window of time beginning at noon on Saturday. At the end of the day, though, win or lose, the Buckeyes are going to the playoffs.
Yep.
Team up north gets in with a win probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. What else do you have that stands out to you that you would like to see on Saturday before we get into predictions? Just kind of throw it all out there.
No, I think the biggest thing for me is just the way that Coach Day has really evolved since last year at this time. I mean, it's literally 1 year ago that we were talking about him potentially being fired. Like that was a real conversation that a lot of Buckeye fans were having. And then we've seen this evolution of him. And just the way that he's attacking this game, I don't know if we win Saturday. I hope we win. We better win. I'm sick of losing to Michigan. But I do know that this program is in the culture and the brotherhood and everything is so strong. And it makes me, like, as a fan, like, it pumps me up to know that, fortunately for me, I've coached kids that are in that program right now. Like, it makes me, like, proud for the fact that they are a part of something that is that special. And so, like win, lose, or draw, and obviously I want to win. I am just, like, I'm proud and, like, I'm happy for Coach Day to finally be at a place where he can look at this week and say the routine is vital, right? Like, as a coach, like, when you don't have to, like, oh, I got to be the toughest team. Oh, we've got to do this and we've got to do that. We've got to do this. When you can get to a place where you're feeling like, I'm not comparing him to Nick Saban, but, like, when Nick Saban tells you the routine matters, you listen, right? Yep. So he knows, like, hey, I got to stick with the routine. We're going to keep the routine the same because players are creatures of habit. Yes. Like, to be at a place where you're listening to your team, like, that's a fun place to be as a player. Like, I know my coach is listening to me. Like, that's awesome, man. And so I'm just proud of Coach Day, man, for evolving and listening to his team. I just hope he goes out and is just himself, man. And he just goes out swinging, lets it hang, and I think it's going to be a fun day on Saturday. I really do. I got a gut feeling, but I'm very proud of the fact that Coach Day has really kind of evolved from last year because it was tough for a while. It was tough for a while, man. So I'm definitely proud of him for that, man.
So yeah, I guess we'll go to put up or shut up time. Prediction wise. Like I said, I wrote down 3 predictions.
Okay.
If Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate both play, I have it 27-10 Ohio State.
Okay.
If Jeremiah Smith only plays, because I don't think we see a scenario where Carnell plays and Jeremiah doesn't, I have it 24-10. And if neither of them play, I have it 17-13 Ohio State.
Okay.
All week I've thought to myself, there's no way Michigan scores enough to win this game. They only had to score 13 last year. So, and I said the same thing last year. I think it's going to be lower scoring than people want. I think a lot of people want Ohio State to go out there and, hang 100. I'd love it. Don't get me wrong. If they scored 60, but I just think at this point, win, stay healthy, don't do any dumb shit. Is ultimately what it boils down to. We've seen it. Marcus Hall, Dontre Wilson. Like, don't get me wrong. Proud of those dudes for going to war. It's like, I'm real curious to know. I need you to ask your guys that in the program. How many times has It's Time for War played this week, or has it played?
Yeah.
Because it is. It's time for war.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's tough to predict the score this week because of last year. It's kind of
It is.
I'm trying not to like think of last year really at all, but it's hard not to. But I think we're a different team. I think Coach Day is different. I'm gonna go. I think the Buckeyes could score 30 plus. I really do. I think it could be. I think they could score 35 plus. There's no doubt about it. But I do think this is a rivalry game, and I think Michigan's going to obviously come to play. But I'm gonna go 28-13, Buckeyes. And I think Julian Sayin has his Heisman moment in this game. I don't know if it means that he wins the Heisman, but I think it solidifies his trip to New York in this game.
I hope, man. I love it. I have come to grips that we don't know what to expect, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a banger one way or the other.
Yeah.
Go Bucks. Don't forget to share this one. It's a big week. Get it out to all your people. I feel like we do a really good job of breaking this stuff down. Like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel. We're going to bump up the Eddie George helmet we talked about. We're going to do that in conjunction with hitting 500 followers. And, we'll dive into a game recap after this weekend and see where the road leads.